couple of months, we will be doing trials in an age de-escalation manner so that hopefully by the time we get to the late spring and early summer, we will have children being able to be vaccinated according to the FDA's guidance.
This week, Johnson & Johnson announced its single-dose vaccine is 72% effective in the United States, and it has reached a deal to provide the country with 100 million doses. Even though it's less effective than Pfizer and Moderna, doctors say it's promising because it's only one dose, so no one has to return for a second shot. And it does not require ultra-cold temperatures, making things easier for transportation and storage. As Johnson & Johnson prepares to file for FDA emergency use authorization next week, this could not come at a better time for teachers and students across the country, as the Biden administration aims to reopen schools within the first 100 days of his presidency. I know a lot of my friends are eager to hear this conversation, so joining me now, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, and Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, former National Teacher of the Year, and she also sits on the House Committee on Education and Labor. Congresswoman, I want to start with you. As a former Educator of the Year, I want to ask you, President Joe Biden says he wants to reopen schools in the first 100 days. As a lawmaker and also as an educator, do you think that's a realistic goal?
Well, thank you for having me. And I am very encouraged that the Biden administration has made reopening schools a top priority. However, I would like to see, first of all, educators assigned as essential workers and have access to the vaccine. I want to make sure that there is money for state and local governments to provide personal protective equipment, which teachers generally are buying out of their own pockets. I want to make sure that they have access to testing. And there's a contingency plan for when there's an outbreak. And equally as important, teachers need to have professional development for virtual learning, and kids have to have digital connection to make sure that if there has to be an interruption in back to school, that they can continue learning. All of us want to see schools reopen, but I want to see that done safely. You know, my colleagues in education were hailed as heroes at the beginning of this pandemic, and now the narrative is shifting to they are selfish because they're asking real, honest questions that they would like answered before they return to in-person learning. So I'm encouraged that the Biden administration is listening and changing course accordingly, but there are lots of things that need to happen before schools open, and I would be comfortable with it.
So, Randi, let me ask you. I mean, you just heard the Congresswoman. I did read your op-ed this week in USA Today, I believe. And you talk about some of the things that will make educators feel comfortable returning to the classroom. Tell us what that is.
So first, can I just say, Tiffany, congratulations. This is a really cool show, and I'm so glad that you're here. So much luck.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, you know, it's as you know, of course, you know, thank God we have an educator. We actually have two educators now on the Ed Committee, Congresswoman Hayes and Congressman Bowman. And hopefully we can do whatever we can to deal with the white supremacist QAnon person who's trying to get on there as well. But that's another story for another day. But the you know, the complexities here are profound. And when there are, like, if you were lifting off a rocket ship, no one would question the complexities. We would be trying to follow the science, trying to follow the physics, and trying to follow the safety. And our kids should be as important in terms of doing that. And so this is not an either or. This is, what does the science tell us, and about how to make things safe. And at least what's happening is that, as Congresswoman Hayes said, that the Biden administration gets this. It's put out its goal. And, you know, we are trying in jurisdiction after jurisdiction to have that blueprint. The op-ed you talked about, there's like 5 major things. One is the mitigation factors like the masks. Another is the testing to ensure that, since 40% of this disease is asymptomatic, you got to see what you can't see. And that's why the testing is so important, and contact tracing as a piece of it. Third, obviously, is the vaccines. Fourth is we're in the middle of a pandemic. So if there are people who are high risk or they're taking care of people who are high risk, we need to give them those kind of accommodations. And fifth is to make sure, as Representative Hayes said, that what happens if there's a new variant that comes across us like it did Great Britain. So there's a blueprint. We know now what to do. There are people in Washington now in the executive branch, Dr. Fauci, the president, obviously, Dr. Walensky, who get this. We need the money to do it. And that's what our union is committed to do, how to reopen in-person learning, because we know it's so important for kids, particularly young kids and kids with special needs, how to do it safely, and then how to also make sure the instructional pieces that Congresswoman Hayes said are done right as well.
So, Congresswoman, let me turn back to you, because I think one of the biggest things that concerns me is the reports of abused kids have gone down. Sometimes school is the only place where kids have a meal. And, my friends can sit, they work full time, but they're sitting trying to do homework and assist educators with doing this. Not everybody has a hotspot. Not everybody has good Wi-Fi. So, in Randy's op-ed, she says it could be up to 200 million tests a month. So from a lawmaker perspective, as we're trying to get the COVID relief stimulus plan passed, what do you think it takes to get folks back in the classroom from a lawmaker perspective?
Well, the equity gaps that were exposed by COVID were not new to teachers. These are things that we've been talking about. These are things that educators have been asking for. It's estimated that it will cost about $250 billion to reopen schools safely. In the COVID relief package, there's about $130 billion dedicated to reopening schools. I recently introduced legislation, the Safe Education Jobs Acts, because I want to make sure that we are preserving the jobs of social workers and counselors and nurses and paraprofessionals and all of those support personnel who are the first to go when school budgets are cut. We need all of those people as kids return from what is probably the most traumatic experience of their life. Listen, in March, before we could close schools, we had to figure out how we were going to feed kids. Before we could close schools, we had to figure out what to do with our McKinney-Vento students who were living in homeless shelters and now had to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning and there was no school to go to. There's so many there are so many community-based issues that were being dealt with at school, which says to me, and I hope to everyone else, that we have to target those parts of our community. We have to make sure that especially our Black and brown students, who are the most vulnerable, the most marginalized, who rely on schools to provide these services, are taken care of. What I want to make clear is I don't want to go back to March 2020 because the problem is so much bigger than that. All of these gaps existed before COVID, and no one can say now that they didn't know or they were not aware. Everybody is aware of how bad it is. Everybody is aware of what needs to be done. Our kids don't have a voice. It is up to the adults to make sure that they are safe, to make sure that they have safe learning environments, and for our legislators to have the will to not only make the investments, but also legislate accordingly so that they're returning to buildings that are safe and being provided with a high quality education.
We've got to wrap, but I just want to ask you very quickly, given that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kevin McCarthy has, rewarded her with this sweet spot on the Help Committee where you serve. How do you feel about it? 10 seconds if you can.
My blood is boiling. Absolutely not. She has no place on this committee. We deal with school climate. We deal with keeping school environments safe. Someone who would even question the existence of mass shootings cannot legislate in good faith. She should not be on this committee. Kevin McCarthy speaking to her is not sufficient for me. He should have never assigned her to this committee, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that she is not seated.
All right, there you have it. Thank you so much, Randy Weingarten, President of AFT, and Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, a former Educator of the Year. What a great conversation with you both. So thank you.